Hi there, thanks for tuning in. Look, today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. It's a bit of an experiment really. What I found on my BSA B40 is that it's got a nasty habit of overcharging, which means it's pumping out about 18.5 volts when I'm running around without my headlight on. Now, I can get around this by turning the headlight switch on and running around on dip or full beam, and that brings the charging rate down to around 14.5 depending on the revs. Now that's all well and good, but I'm a bit old school and I don't like running around with my headlight on. I mean, some people think it's a safe thing to do, but it isn't a safe thing to do all the time, because there's some circumstances where that can work against you. It's something that a lot of people don't realise, especially now in this time of year in Australia. It's June and the sun is pretty low in the sky, and if you got the sun behind you in the morning or the evening when you're riding your bike, you got your headlight on, that's actually disguising yourself. You want a black silhouette, you don't want your headlight on. So that's something that's a safety consideration against. There's a good reason for not riding with your headlight on. The other reason, of course, is that running around with your headlight on all the time, you're more likely to start blowing bulbs. And so if it gets dark, what are you going to do then when you're blowing your headlight bulbs? You run around all the time with your headlight on in the day. You haven't got any headlights at night, so that's not very clever either. So I like having the option of being able to turn my lights off and not worry about my charging system. Now, a lot of people say there's nothing wrong with the old charging system on the British bikes. And as many of you know, they rely on a system with a separate rectifier and regulator, and the regulator is in the form of one of these little Zena diodes. Now the Zena diode is a form of heat sink, so any excess electricity produced by the charging system actually dissipates through a kind of alloy unit, which on this bike is mounted between the forks just under the headlight. So it gets rid of the energy via heat, and that's all well and good. Of course, you've got to make sure that you've got a good earth on there and everything is tip top. Now, I was lucky enough when I bought this bike to have a brand new Zena diode in the box. So I fitted it. This is the old one. The charging system was pumping out about 18.5 volts without any headlight on. If I flick on the headlights, I can get that down to about 14.5, something like that. Still a little bit high, but as I say, I don't want to run around with my headlight on all the time. So I decided to put the new Zena diode on, which I've done. And to be honest, it hasn't made an awful lot of difference. Charging has probably gone down an extra volt, but it's not enough as far as I'm concerned. So what I thought I'd have a go at is put on one of these cheap, it's off eBay, it's just a modern day regulator rectifier, or reg if you prefer. Cost wise, of course, I mean, I paid about $35 for that on eBay. And a Zena diode, I know OEM will cost you twice that. And of course, if you have to replace the rectifier as well, you're up into the, by the time you pay postage, you're up on probably a couple of $100. The big difference between replacing with the OEM and replacing with that, Chinese reg. But we're going to give it a go and see what happens, because I can't see any reason why this won't work. You've got 3 wires coming off the alternator on this bike, which is of course the AC circuit coming into the rectifier, and then once it's sorted itself out in there, and it's the heat sink, as you can see, is on the actual unit itself, comes out fully regulated and everything with red and a black. So I'm just going to connect the red and the black to the positive and negative on the battery, because this bike, by the way, is positive, so I've got to be mindful of where I put those. And we're going to test it and see if it solves my charging problem. And I know if there's any rivet counters out there who say, oh, you should have everything OEM on the bike. I mean, nobody's going to know. It's going to be tucked under the tank or seat there somewhere. And I'm going to leave all the OEM stuff on so that I can just simply unplug it and chop and change if I want to. And that keeps everybody happy, doesn't it? So first thing we're going to do then is we'll start it up, and I'll put the voltmeter on it and we'll see what it's doing with the standard system on it. Let's spin this thing around so you can have a better look at the battery on the other side. and we'll kick it in the guts, and you can have a look at what it's doing with our Zena Diode system. Now, the other thing I've got on this bike, which I'll show you, is a little battery indicator. So if I turn that ignition off, you'll be able to see on here there's a little flashing indicator, which is actually telling me that that battery is a little bit low. Now, if all is well, that will flash green. So at the moment, it's telling me that the battery is beginning to get a little bit low. It will also go red if it's overcharging or it's a flat battery. So I find when I'm running around with the lights off that this flash begins to flash red because it's overcharging. Obviously, I've also got an ammeter on here, which is all well and good, but you tend to find that when you're actually running around, the needle vibrates back and forth so much that you don't really get a very accurate reading. So again, if I put the ignition on, I've got my ignition on light there, which isn't a traditional ignition light that it doesn't actually, that stays on all the time. I need to rewire that actually so that it goes out when the engine is running. Anyway, that's another job. You can see that again, it's flashing red. It's not happy at the moment. This because I suppose because the temperature is so cold, the battery's a bit low. Now I have fitted on this bike, I don't know if you can see that there, look, there's a little voltmeter. I've also got my little charging arrangement so I can put the bike on a trickle charge if need be. So this is the red one which I use to plug in there out of the way, and this goes to the voltmeter, which is that little gizmo like this. So I'll plug it in, look, and you can see I've got 12.1 volts and it's 7.3 degrees this morning, which is pretty chilly, isn't it? So anyway, 12.1, I mean, that should be enough to be able to kickstart the engine. Let's see, let's go through the little starting routine on this bike and we'll see if we can kick it over. It hasn't been started for a few weeks, and we'll see how we go. I'll free the clutch up. Like that. And now, what I like to do is turn off the ignition, give the carburetor a little tickle, jump on board, and just get a bit of fumy fuel into the cylinder. Using my thumb on the decompression lever just to give my leg an easier time. Now that's got a bit of fuel into the cylinder, I'll give it another little squirt and put the ignition on. And then we find top dead center. There we go. And I'm just going to go past that with the decompression unit and we'll give it one boot. As I say, it hasn't been started for a while. One kick. First kick, here we go. You beauty. Now as you can see, that's now flashing red, which means it's overcharging. Also, if you look at the ammeter, that's also flipping around, it's charging well. Okay, so that shows you what we're up against, doesn't it? So let's see if we can improve that with this eBay Reg Rec. Okay, so we'll be doing a bit of speeded up camera work here because we want to make the video as short and interesting as possible. So we'll whip the tank off. The other thing I should have mentioned, by the way, is that some of you might have thought, why is he running that motorcycle in a garage? Because he's going to kill himself with carbon monoxide poisoning. Of course, I'm not quite that daft, and I'll give you a scan of my garage. And as you can see, there's my camera, and I've got fully open doors, so I've got plenty of ventilation in here, so you don't want to worry about me dropping dead from carbon monoxide poisoning. Of course, I expect that would probably get more views than anything else if I did that, but I'm not about to entertain the public in that manner. And there she blows. Oh, got a full tank of petrol, that's nice. Put this somewhere safe. So what we got here? So look, this is the OEM Rectifier, which of course has got your your generator wires coming off there, coming in, and then that goes off to that Zena Diode arrangement heatsink, which is on the front of the bike, just there. So we'll have a little nosy at that. And so the first job, I think, is figuring out where we're going to put this reg rec, where we're going to mount it so it's out of the way. So as you can see, the reg rec unit, the new one, is considerably larger than the original rectifier, and there doesn't appear to be an awful lot of room on that side of the bike to fit it under the tank anyway. So look around here. Oh yeah, no, there's a bit of room under the seat actually. I reckon that'd be a good place to mount it. It'd be on the mudguard behind the seat. Can you see that gap? I don't know if you can see that. Well, yeah, we'll whip the seat off, and I think that might be the go. And then I might have to muck around with extending the wires. The other thing, of course, is it, you know, it'd be nice to have under there, you're still going to get plenty of airflow to keep the unit cool. So we'll undo these two nuts on either side, and then the seat just lifts off. That should do. Thank you. Oh yeah, look, plenty of room under there. Where is it? I reckon that'll be the go. Yeah, it does look like I'm going to have to extend the wires. But I have to do that, I have to do that. It's not the end of the world, is it? Yeah, I think that's, I think this is the only place realistically we're going to be able to mount this unit, is on the mudguard there. So I'll have to drill some holes, attach it to the steel mudguard, and then it should be out of the way of everything else. Alright, let's get on with it. Alright, so I'm just laying out the stuff that I'm going to use here. Of course, you don't have to be as thorough as I'm going to be, but this is the steps of how I'm going to mount this reg rec. So it's a case of mark it with a texter, punch it, step drill it, just using cordless drill. And of course, you want to be, cleanliness is next to godliness. I'm just using a carb throttle body cleaner there. You can use any solvent you like just to clean things up. I'm going to prime the hole after I've drilled it and paint it similar color. And I'm also going to use some of this. I'm a plumber by trade, so I've got some of this roof gutter sealant, silicone sealer. So I'm just going to put a blob of silo, because it's a mud guard, I don't want moisture coming up through. And I'm just going to bolt the reg rec to the mud guard with a couple of bolts and spring washers that I found in my box of bits and bobs. So let's just do that quickly then, and we'll mount the reg rec under the seat. Lots of room for it there, and it's going to get plenty of airflow too. So I reckon that's a really good spot for it. So let's pop it on and see how we go. Alright, so that's nice and solid on there. I'm happy with that, and it's tucked away, plenty of airflow. That's ideal. So that's mounting it, and now I just got to sort out the wiring. So as you can see, we've got 3 wires coming off the generator, and we got our 3 wires for the going to the rectifier, and then we got our red positive and our black negative, which we're going to connect to the battery terminals. Now obviously these are different connections, so what we'll do is we'll snip all these bullets off, and we're going to replace those 3 with little spade clips like that one, and we might put a little bit of heat wrap on the ends of those just to make sure that they're not going to short off on anything, and make it all protected. And then we're going to cut these off as well and replace them with the red one. I've got some brown wire and I've got some blue wire from various projects of wire that I had. It's the same thickness, that's the thing. It's a thicker wire. Now, a little trick you can do if you don't have any of these little ring end connections like that, what you can do is just strip off about 2 inches of the insulation and then get yourself a little screwdriver. I mean, I live in the bush, so I can't get stuff really easily, so I have to make things now and again. But this is a good way of making a really solid battery terminal, is you do that and then solder that up, and then that makes a really solid eyelet connection to go onto the battery post. So we'll do that quickly. There you go. Perfect. Look at that. What's wrong with that? Okie doke, so now we're going to solder these up. So as you can see, with I've got my spade connectors on there, my males, got some heat wrap ready to go on and make that all nice and safe. Plug into the generator wires, and then I've got my positive and negative coming off the Rec, the new one, and I didn't have red and black wires, but I've got extra thick brown and blue, so we've got that up to the new color coding, and it helps me to distinguish the wires from the old and new when I get down there, so that's okay. And as you can see, I've made my little eyelets which I'm going to put on the battery post, and I'm just going to solder these up, joining them like that, wrapped, twisted and joined together, soldered, and then I'm going to cover those with heat wrap, and that's the best I can do under the circumstances. So let's get that done. Oh dear, it's hard work grovelling around on the floor at my age, I tell you. Okie dokie. Might put a bit of the old cable wrap on that. You can get this corrugated stuff which you can buy, which this stuff here, and it's got a slot in it, and you can just feed it onto the wires, and that'll help to protect that small length of cable there. Make it look a little bit better, just where it passes through the frame, so you don't get any rubbing or anything. And we'll put lots of little zip ties on this either to make it all look better. Okay, so there they go. Those are the two cables. Straight through there, like that. And we'll sort that out after. And I don't know about any of you or electricians, but I don't think that looks too bad, sure. And now we'll spin the bike around again and we'll connect the battery up. Ooh. Okay, so that's had a little bit of a tidy up. So what else do we know? If I turn this ignition on, I've got my ignition lights come on again there, look. And again, got my main lights, my side lights all coming on. Ignition, things that work still, indicators. It's all working, that's good. Horn, lovely. Brake light. So everything works, so that's good. Of course, we haven't had any massive explosions or anything, so that's also a bonus. So let's chuck the tank back on and put everything back together, and we'll see if it fires up. So the voltage as it stands is 4.9, so we've got plenty of electric in there. You're on. and see if we can do a repeat of this morning's impeccable starting. Little tickle on the armor. There we are. I'm going to get my leg. If you wonder why I'm limping around, it's because I've done me hipping. I don't know how I did it, but I'm shuffling around like an old man now. Not like a young man, but I'm hoping my hip will get better. Anyway, stop me kicking this because it's my left hip, not my right, so that's good. Oh, I can smell fuel there now. Let's get a bit into the chamber. I'll free the clutch up too. Alright, that should do it. Another squirt. Ignition on. Top dead cent. There she is. Just passed. Just kick it in the guts. Oh, nearly. Very close. Ooh, look at that. That's a good start. You've got a green light on charging. So that's for the head and that's for the lights off. So that's good. What's down here? Oh, look at that! 14.7. Fantastic. Now that's good. Alright, put the lights on. Lights on. Right. That's fantastic. Oh, that's good. I'm impressed. I'm getting a bit fumey in here, so we'll take it outside and we'll take it for a spin. So there you go, folks. I would call that an outstanding success. Look, at no point, if I had the lights off or on park, or when I had the lights on, at no point did the charging go higher than 14.67, anything like that. So that's a huge improvement over the Lucas system, which was belting out 18 volts with the lights off. So that's exactly where you want it. When I put the headlight on, I noticed it was around 13.56, that kind of figure, which again is pretty much what you expect and what you want with a charging system. When I can, even though this is tucked away up under the mudguard there, I can actually just sneak my hand up underneath and put my hand on top of the Reg, and I can feel it's quite a cold day today, but I can feel even with a small little trip up the road and back there, there's just this hint of warmth on those fins. So obviously, and I went up the road with the lights off, so obviously it's doing its job. And of course, on a hot day, that will be the true proof of the pudding. And if I do get any problems with it, of course, I'll do a report later on in the comments section there. Also, if there's anyone out there who's got any idea how I can sort out this ignition light, that would be really good, because an ignition light should come on when you turn the ignition on, and then when you fire up the engine, it should switch off. And with this bike, that red ignition light stays on all the time. It's almost like an ignition on light. Now, I don't know if that's normal on the BSA or not, but I would prefer to have it more conventional. So if any of you know how to wire that up, that would be a great help. Or maybe if you can point me in the right direction, that would be fantastic. So this BSA B40 cheap eBay Reg That seems to work really well. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't work on a Triumph or a Norton or any other old British bike which has got that old Zena Diode type system. And I hope that if any of you have got any overcharging problems with your bike, that's one solution which can hopefully sort you out. So if you found this video useful, feel free to like, subscribe, buy me a coffee, whatever you like. And I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.